She's doing stuff. Next week, is it chair? Truck. One time.
He was here. I came lunchtime twice. And there was a lady and I'll be living with person to Canada for a week. Come back.
Oh, there she is. That's your special
Of course, it's sister. Synced up. Mary Pay. She met you and
She didn't open the book. It was fun. It was fun.
that's your son.
This is my son.
Okay.
Bobby, you stop the music?
The music has been stopped half an hour.
Grew up in Nashville. Oh, really?
Okay.
Deep as far as they integrate. We used to live right there.
Yeah. Hello, hello. Dear friends, welcome to our usual spiritual rendezvous. And I let the floor to talk.
Thank you, and welcome
Thank you for
everybody.
coming.
And I see a lot of faces that haven't been here before. How many of you have never been at all to one of these meetings? 1, 2, 3, 4. Wow. And how many were not here last week? Oh, okay. So what did we talk about last week? Who can remind? Patty, can you remind us?
She won't come anymore now. You're done. You lost her.
Okay.
We were talking about game.
Yes, we talked about
Game of
spirituality and we
Game
compared
of
it to
life.
games. Farzin remembered because I talked about how if you can get better at a game, the same principles are to get better at life. And I asked Farzin how he got better at golf. And then several people said he never did. So, so that didn't work good. So I want to continue with this idea. But first of all, for those of you that are new, we're talking about spirituality. And how many of you believe that you are an eternal being? That you're an eternal creature? How many of you believe that you are your body? That your physical body is what you are?
That's all you mean?
Yes. How many think you're your body? Because there's a lot of, you know, like Richard Dawkins and Hitchens and so on. There's a lot of modern writers that say, no, you're just a bundle, you're a big lumbering robot, you know, that as soon as it dies, it decays. But what we're talking about here is the fact that you are a soul, a spirit. And your soul and spirit is an eternal thing. It's an eternal creature, and you're going to live forever. All of you are going to live forever, and you just happen to be associated with these atoms for 60, 70 years. But you're not even associated with these atoms. The atoms that you're associated with now, Azar, she has a whole bunch of atoms. We worked out one week that the total amount of atoms that make up Azar would only cost $2 or $3. If I were to go to the store and buy, you know, I think it's about 12, things of water and the phosphorus, you know, all the different things, it would only cost a few dollars. Does that make Azar, the physical body, does it make her? Not at all. There's something else that is connected or associated with her, and that's her spirit. In fact, the atoms in Azar go out of her, and other atoms come in at such a rate that within 1 year, 99% of the atoms in Azar are different to what they were a year ago. So if you married Patty, how long ago did you marry Patty?
37 years.
Okay, what's sitting
right?
over there, you didn't marry any of those atoms. Those atoms are now
brand new.
floating around.
Start all over again.
They're starting all over again. So it's quite clear that what makes up Patty is not those physical atoms. They come and go like musical chairs. The only thing that matters is your soul or your spirit. So last week we talked about the fact that you are living in a world that's meant to develop your spirit. And at some stage, you are going to go to another world that is the spiritual world. So in addition to believing that you are a spirit or a soul, you have to understand that there's also a different world that's not this world, a spiritual world. And right now, you're in the spiritual world. You just don't know it, in the same way that right now, if you were to look at a baby in the womb of its mother, would that baby know where it is in relation to outside the womb? Although the womb is in the bigger world, the baby is constricted in the womb world. And we are in the womb of the spiritual world. So this world that we're in now, everything you see, is just as constricted in relation to the spiritual world. And we're about to go to the spiritual world. Any minute now, we're going to go to the spiritual world. Some of us sooner than others. But you never know when you're going to go to the next world. As soon.
2 weeks ago, I almost went, but...
Yes, Siva was in the hospital, and she almost went. But so we're all going to go to that world. And so in one of the sessions, I talked about how when I go traveling the night before, I'm packing crazy. How many of you do that? The night before you have an international trip, you're packing. Who packs the night before and they're packing crazy? Okay, who's still packing the morning before they're leaving? Who's still wondering about what they're packing 5 minutes before you're about to leave? Are you doing that? And who, as they're driving to the airport in a taxi, are thinking, what did I not pack? Is anyone like that? Okay, this is what we're all doing. And the point is that you are going to go on a journey to the next world at some stage. And you can only take some things with you, and you cannot take your physical body with you. You can't take your wealth. You can't take your car. You can't take your clothes. You can't take your job. You can't take your position. There's many things you can't take with you when you go to the next world. And there's certain things you can, and that's your eternal soul. And the eternal soul has certain powers or capacities that if you develop them, you can take those with you. In the same way that a baby, when it's in the womb, what does a baby have to develop in the womb? Think of two cells. You can't see it. Imagine 2 cells. We call that a zygote. Did you know what that is? It's 2 cells of a human being. You have to look at it through a very fine microscope. From that until 9 months when it comes out, what does the baby acquire? Tell me what it acquires.
Physical body.
Physical body, but what parts of the body?
Eyes, nose...
Okay, you got eyes. What does it have?
Fingers. Mom?
What is that?
Fingers.
Fingers. What else does it acquire? Heart. It acquires a heart. What else?
Mom?
Everything that he
Right.
needs in this world.
Okay, it acquires all those things. Did it have any of them when it started? Look at the 2-cell zygote in a... Go on the internet and look at a zygote. Type in zygote to see a picture of it. You know what a zygote looks like? Anyone know?
Brine shrimp.
I'm sorry?
Brine shrimp.
If you take a bacteria, a single-cell bacteria, which is the most primitive form of life possible in existence, and put it next to a zygote, even an expert can't tell the difference. They just look exactly the same. So you were at one time just the same as a single-celled bacteria. What made you go from that to, in 9 months, to have eyes and ears and nose and mouth and so on? It was the whole process in the womb. Now, what do you need your eyes for in the womb?
No.
What do you need your hands for in the womb? What do you need your ears for in the womb? What do you need your lungs for in the womb? You do need any of those things in the womb. But what if you didn't develop them in the womb? Then you wouldn't be able to take advantage of this world. And the same is true now of your soul. Your soul is in the womb of the next world. And when you're born into the next world, if you did not develop things that you don't think you need right now, you say, I don't need love. I don't need compassion. I don't need forgiveness. I don't need mercy. I don't need kindness. So you say, I don't need them. They're not of no use to me in this particular world. Then when you're born in the next world, you'll be kind of spiritually deformed in the same way that you'll be physically deformed. So how many of you, if you believe that this was true, would like to develop your spirit while you're in this world? That's why we're all here. And this was really the goal of all the religions. The goal of Judaism, the goal of Christianity, the goal of Islam, the goal of Hinduism. All of them came to teach us that there is a spiritual world. The whole call of Jesus was a call to the kingdom. What did Jesus say? He said, you must be born again. Okay, so he's basically saying you must be born again. They said to him, what do you mean? Do I have to go back into the womb of my mother and jump back in? He said, thou fool. That which is of the flesh is of the flesh. That which is of the kingdom is of the kingdom. And what he meant by the kingdom was a spiritual world. Right now, there's a spiritual world right in front of you. It's right here. Right here, there's a spiritual world. And we need to learn to live in that world as much as we can, here and now. So, for the last couple of weeks, we've been beating around the bush saying, oh, we have to get good at this, we have to love, we have to do this. Now we're going to start talking serious. What you have to do to become spiritual. Now, spiritual life is exactly the same as physical life, just on a higher level. Because all forms of life are just a higher and higher expression of a principle. For example, if you look in the universe, you'll find that there is a principle of cohesion that takes basic atoms that are just floating around the universe, you know, hydrogen and so on. They're floating around the universe, and they gather together and they have cohesion in what we call the mineral spirit. Does anyone understand the mineral spirit? It's interesting even at that level that there's some form of life that has a cohesion. It's some kind of unity that bonds it together. There's a higher form of life, and that life is what we call the vegetable spirit. Now, what's the difference between the mineral and the vegetable? Who can tell us? What does the vegetable have that the mineral doesn't have?
Growth.
It has growth. Would you say that's the main thing it has? It has so it's a higher form of life, and it's what we call organic life. Now then you go from the vegetable spirit to the animal spirit. Now what does the animal spirit have that the vegetable doesn't have?
Movement, thought,
Movement, yes.
thought.
It has a certain form of thought, yes, and it has the senses. It has, you know, the five senses. Would you agree? So, okay, then you go from the animal to man. Now what things can man do that animals can't even do 1% of? Think. What else?
Create.
Create. Consciousness is the normal term that most people say that we have a certain kind of consciousness. But you can also just look at the manifestations. What can man do? He builds things. He builds convention centers, for argument's sake, you know, just as an example. But he builds everything. Do animals build anything?
They do. Birds build nests.
Okay, birds build nests.
They
Yes,
build a
but
real complicated nest.
they're pretty good, aren't they? Yeah. But they don't control their environment. They basically, you know, they'll go north, they'll go south, they'll follow, and so on. There's many, many things. In fact, psychologists, they write down a list of the bundle of things that humans can do that animals can't do 1% of. Okay, so would you agree that there are various levels of life, from the mineral to the plant to the animal to man? And now there's a higher one, which is your spiritual life. It's just a higher level. So all the principles that exist in the physical world for life exist at higher and higher levels. In the same way that atoms are modeled after galaxies and nebula, and drops of water are modeled after oceans. It's just, everything is like a layer upon a layer. There's only one truth that expresses itself at all levels. So when we look at the life of the spirit, we can learn from the life of the physical body. Now who can tell me, how does a physical body stay alive?
Nutrition.
They say there's 6 things that the physical body needs to stay alive.
Physiological needs.
Yes, there's 6 things that you got to get.
Air.
Water.
Okay, let's count them up. Air is one of them.
Water.
So you need to breathe. Did you say water?
Water.
You need water. Okay, what else?
Food.
Food. Good, you got 3 out of 6.
Sleep.
Sleep. You got 4 out of 6. That's one of them. What's another one?
Waste management.
Waste management? No, that's not one.
Health.
Oh, that's,
Health.
yes,
Shelter?
but we're trying. These are things that will give you health. So we've got
Sun.
water, air, food, sleep. I'll tell you what the other 2 are. One is motion. Motion is required to physical life. And the other is to stay within a certain range of temperature. That's according, I'm just telling you, this is according to, in other words, you can't go too hot or too cold. Now you can die from any one of these 6. Can you die from starvation? Can you die from dehydration? Can you die from, when you can't breathe, what do you call that? Can you die from suffocation? Can you die from being too hot or too cold? Can you die from complete lack of sleep? Yes, you can. Did you know that? Now, most of these things you have to get in a certain way. Think about this. Oxygen. You have to get oxygen. In what way do you have to get oxygen? Who can tell me?
Respiration.
Yes, but more specifically. Inhaling and exhaling, yes. Let's talk about food then. In what way should you get food? Okay, let's say I go down to the store and I buy enough food for a month. If you're with Ziba, that's not unusual. So you buy enough food for a month. How do you consume that food for a month?
In portions.
Good. You consume it in proportion. Do you go and once a month eat all the food
No.
in one meal? No. You eat it daily, and in fact you don't even just eat it daily. You probably eat it 3 times a day or 4 times a day or something. Would you agree? How about air? Do you know how much air you breathe? Do you know you exhale 6 garbage bags a day full of air? Did you know that? You take in and you exhale. Do you know that you exhale the Goodyear blimp every 17 months? That's how much air you take in and out. Isn't that a lot?
So when they say you're full of air, that's what they
You are full of air.
Full of hot air.
Yes, you're full of hot air. Okay, so you inhale and exhale as much air as the Goodyear blimp every 17 months. So it's like 50 Goodyear blimps in your lifetime. And have you ever seen how big the Goodyear blimp is? It's huge. Okay, but how do you do that air? How do you just go and suck the whole Goodyear blimp in?
one breath at a time.
You do it one breath at a time. Is it the same with everything else? Okay, so it's the dailiness that causes life. Now, if you do not do something regularly, it will die. Right now, Ziba's got a few plants out there that she bought that they were dying at the store. What were they?
Dillweed.
They were dill. She went and bought dill and they were like this. And she said, should I buy these? And the man said, oh yeah, they'll come back to life. So she brought them home. She put them in and they just dipped. Because what happens when something dies? You can't do anything about it. It has to have the nourishing soil every single day. You take a plant out of the sun for a week, it might die. Isn't that right? If you don't eat, how long can you go without eating food?
17 days.
I was told 30 days,
Yeah.
but they said it depends on how overweight you are.
Yeah.
If you're really overweight, you can actually go a little longer. But it's not more than a month. How long can you go without drinking?
A week?
7 days.
I was told 3 days.
You
But
know.
you tried.
No, I test.
How long can you go without sleep? It's only 2 or 3 days. Other than you start to go crazy. How long can you go without breathing?
2 minutes, 3 minutes.
Most people can go 90 seconds, but divers, they can go 2, 3, 4, 5. Is that right?
Yeah.
But they have to really train. But most of us, how many of you have ever tried to hold your breath for a minute? Can you do it? It's hard, isn't it? So you have to do that. So would you agree that regularity is important to physical life? To get certain things and to not try and get them all at once. Now we think with spirituality that, oh, sooner or later I'm going to get around to becoming spiritual. I'm going to, one day I'm going to read all this, or I'm going to pray all that, and I'm going to get good, and I put it off. How many of you do that with other things in life? You say, oh, I must get around to doing so-and-so. Some big job or something. And the whole point with spirituality is it's very easy to accomplish if you do it regularly and gradually. And it's impossible to accomplish any other way. A lot of us, we live in a world now where we want everything instant. We want everything fast, and if we can't get it fast, we don't want it at all. For example, now there's this whole concept that food has to be fast. And fast foods, you know, like Taco Bell.
Best thing that ever happened.
It's the best thing. But the point is that it's crazy now, that everything has to be fast. I mean, I remember growing up, my mother and father didn't like instant coffee. They said, instant coffee? They didn't like it. They said, instant. I remember when a microwave came out. Does anyone remember when a microwave came out? And we thought how incredible it was fast. And then I remember someone said that, there was an old joke, they said that the French will eat snails, but Americans will never eat snails because they only like fast food, which is a joke, you know. The point is that we want everything fast. And but we don't realize how easy things are to achieve that are big if they are done incrementally. Mark Twain, he said, you're only a man, I can't remember exactly, but you could look it up on the internet. He said, you're only a man when you have planted and grown a tree, raised a child, and written a novel. Okay? Now, he knows because he's written novels. Okay? But he was trying to make a point that you plant a tree, and you water it, and for 20 years, and then you go out and see that tree. And it's an amazing feeling. Did you ever see the tree grow if you watched it? No, but you looked after it. And then he said raise a child, which takes 15, 20, 30 years, you know, forever. And he said written a novel. And I think that was very interesting because Mark Twain has written some good novels, and he's making it clear to us that you don't write a novel, you just sit down and, oh, I'm going to write a novel today. He says you do it slowly. So it's the dailiness that causes you to achieve anything. And so what we need to do is to figure out what is the spiritual equivalent of breathing, eating, sleeping, drinking. Do you understand? If we could figure out what those spiritual things are and do those every day. Now, when I was first learning to play violin, and by the way, my mother was a piano player, and when I was 5, 6, or 7, she took me to a violin teacher. In fact, what happened is my uncle, they come from a Jewish background, but if a kid's going to play, he has to have the best teacher in America. You know how they have this stupid thing? So he says, my uncle says, God damn it, he's got to have the best teacher. Yeah. So they took me to Riichi Rishi, who is the greatest concert violinist. And I was 6, and I had to play the violin for him. Okay, so I played the violin for this guy, because my uncle wanted to buy a violin from him. He said, I'll sell you a violin, but you have to go to this teacher. And he wrote the teacher down. And the teacher was named Manuel Kempinski. And Manuel Kempinski was considered the best teacher in America. He was the concert master of Toscanini's symphony. Do you know Toscanini had the best symphony in America? The concert master of an orchestra is the leader of the whole orchestra. He's not just in the first violin, he's the first of the first. And this man, he said, you have to go to him. You go to him, I'll give you the violin. So I went to this Manuel Kempinski. And you know what he said to me the first day? He said, I want to make sure that you play the violin every single day. He says, I want you to play the violin every single day. Make sure you open it and take it out and play it. And he said, if you play the violin 5 minutes a day, just 5 minutes every single day, that will be better, he said, than playing 2 hours on 1 day a week. That's what he said, exactly those words. Now, do the math. How many? If you're going to a lesson 1 of days a week, you have 6 days in which you can practice. How much is 5 minutes a day in terms of time?
30 minutes.
It's 30 minutes. So how long is 2 hours?
4 times.
4 times that. And he said that 4 times that was not as good as doing it this way. And he said that to me. He said that you do this. Now, this is the best teacher in the world. And this is, you look up in any book, this is the, and by the way, one of his students, who was only like a 7 or 8-year-old girl who was named Delana Jensen, she ended up being the first American to win the violin at the Tchaikovsky competition in Moscow when I was growing up. In other words, he taught one of the greatest violinists of all time. She's still to this day considered one of the great child prodigies. So this is not a, now, and he said, 5 minutes a day, take out the violin. He said, even take it out, put it in play, and put it back. He says, that's the first step. Before learning to play the violin, learn to take it out and play it once a day. Now, why do you think that dailiness is so important? Why do you think he taught this first? Who can tell me why?
Get into the habit.
Repetition.
Get into the habit. What else? Yes.
Repetition becomes habitual or natural.
Yes. What else? Why do you think?
It becomes second nature. You don't really think about it.
Well, why do you think he wanted you to do that first? At first.
Created love for that doing.
Yeah. I'm not sure, but at first I used to think this. Because I was thinking when I was growing up, why did he say this? I thought maybe it's not possible to play it for 5 minutes. Because if you take it out for 5 minutes, you might play 6 or 10 or 15 and so on. But if you think it's going to be an hour, you may not take it out at all. So he said, if you just take it out and play it, and if you do put it back after a minute, that's fine, but you're going to sometimes go longer. That's what I used to think. But I think there's more to it. It's kind of like eating food daily or breathing regular or something. The dailiness is a very, very important component to development. There's something about it that keeps the plant alive in the same way that Ziva's things. And so this is what we need to understand, that there's a dailiness about it. If you let a single day go by and do not do something to feed your spirit could die just as surely as Ziba's dill. And actually, when we're walking out tonight, when you go out, straight there's a bed of things there. You can see Ziba's dead dill out there.
But the other things I don't allow.
There is no death.
Your spirit doesn't die, but it atrophies. There's really no death in any part of physical creation. If you look even in the physical creation, nothing gets annihilated. Nothing. Nothing. The rocks don't get annihilated. They only transfigure or transfer to other elements.
Right, but your analogy was that the plant dies, you can never resurrect it.
Yes.
So you were making an analogy with the soul.
Yeah, I think that the soul can come back to life. I think that at any time you can resurrect the soul. But the soul cannot grow if it doesn't grow in an orderly way.
Correct.
And it will only grow in an orderly way if you do it in increments. If you keep thinking that I can get a lot of spiritual growth quickly, you will never grow. The best analogy, I guess, would be muscle growth. If you go into a gym right now and do a whole lot of work, like pump this heavy weight, you can. When you come out, are you going to be stronger than you were when you came in? In fact, you could be weaker, right? Temporarily. But if you do it regularly, what happens? It takes quite a while, but if you do it regularly, it's quite sure. I don't think anybody that exercises doesn't get stronger if they do it regularly. So what I'm trying to say, don't take my analogy to an extreme, but just take the basic principle that it is the dailiness that counts. So now, I want to ask you, what do you think are the daily things? What are the 6 things that are the equivalent to the spirit that are to the body? Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say no.
You want me to tell you what the 6 are? Okay. If you do these 6 things every day, to a certain extent, you are definitely your soul is going to develop. And if you did them even for a minute or 2, it would not matter. But the first thing I want to say is this, is that there's a statement, I can remember what he said. He said, every morning upon waking, he says, look at yourself, evaluate yourself, and see if you are better than you were yesterday. Just see if you're better. If you're more loving, you're more compassionate, you're more forgiving. If you're better than you were yesterday in any way. He says, if you are better than you were yesterday, then thank God and ask God for an increase. Just in the same way that a plant is a little more. He says, if you're not better than you are yesterday, like say you're worse, he says, then pray to God for forgiveness and start again. And all you need to do is try to beat yesterday. And he says, never compare yourself to anybody else. That you're better than someone else, or that you're worse than someone else. We can do both. Sometimes, I think I'm so much better than him, I'm so much more spiritual. Or we might think, how can I ever be like him or her? They're so much more. In either case, it doesn't matter. Never compare yourself to anybody. Only compare yourself to yourself yesterday. That's it. The whole goal in life is just to beat yesterday. Who cares where you're going to go or where you came from? You can only worry about today. So this is the goal. In fact, I even tell people, only try to beat yesterday and you can grow spiritually. Even, let's just say that you murdered 10 people yesterday. Try to murder 9 people today. And you're laughing? Why? Why are you laughing? In 10 days you wouldn't be killing any more people. That would be good, wouldn't it? And there are people in the world that are killing. And doing all kinds of other things that are just as bad. There has to be a path for everybody to become good. We can't just think, oh, this is only for the good people that aren't already killing. There are people that are doing all kinds of things. You can't just make them snap a finger, and change. They have to be a little better every day. So I'm going to tell you what I think are the 6 things that are eating, drinking, breathing, sleeping, and so on. Okay? These are what I'm going to tell you what they are. And then I'll tell you how we can do each of those. And we're going to start learning how to do every one of these 6. And tomorrow, I hope you'll get up and take the violin out. That's what I hope. You'll get up and take the violin out. In fact, I want to tell you something. Has anyone ever studied speed reading? Who studied it? Did you study it?
I tried to.
Okay. The original method of speed reading, the way they taught you, you took a book and you turned all the pages. Did you know that method? Okay, there was a certain method. Do you have a book?
Not really.
No, there's no more books. Okay. You took the book and you turned every page. Ah, you know, the method that I was taught, you actually practiced, you just flipped the whole page. Okay, you're not getting one thing. Okay, then they say just see if you can get the page numbers or the headings. And then get a little, it's exactly the opposite of the way I would think of speed reading. Isn't it interesting? But the reason they say that is that you get in the habit of doing that, and then you see that, and then you see, and then you start seeing words, then you start seeing paragraphs, and so on. So the increasing is done by first getting in the habit of just reading fast. Isn't that interesting? Now, I don't like speed reading, personally, because I like to sub-vocalize. Do you know what sub-vocalizing is?
No.
Oh, sub-vocalizing was when you read, you hear it out loud. Yeah, who does that? Anyone? Raise your hand. Do you do that? I love to do that. And actually, I even move my lips sometimes. You know people move their lips when they read? So I didn't like it, and my teacher kept saying, you have to stop doing that, and snap you on the wrist, because they have to eliminate sub-vocalization. But I saw students that could learn, I swear, they could go like this, and they'd end up becoming lawyers and doctors. They learned all kinds of things because they learned that skill. Have you seen people that have that skill?
Yeah, like just being in our publishing industry, we have so many books and manuscripts.
Oh, yes, so you're editors.
Like, I can't read all of that, but you just have to get the gist of everything. It's
Yes.
like when I read a magazine, I read it from back to front.
Oh, yeah, yeah. But it's just interesting they do that. So the first thing I want you to do is I want you to say, I want to put aside 5 minutes a day for spirituality. How many of you have 5 minutes a day? Yeah, you have it. But the point is, okay, how many of you eat every day? How many of you breathe every day? You do it because your body automatically craves it.
Well, can I tell you something? The minute that it's easy to say that you have 5 minutes, but when you compare it to the food or air, if we don't do it, we die.
Yes.
But if we don't do the 5 minutes, we don't know.
Yeah.
We are dying, but there's no immediate consequence.
No,
So you forget about it.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
And this is the difference, like you were talking about, you know, trying to make the analogy fit. This is the difference between physical life and spiritual life. Physical life, there's instinct or genetic predisposition towards getting sleep and air and so on. Actually, some people don't. You know, they don't eat and they starve to death or something. With spiritual life, you have to have the same craving, the same spiritual craving that you have physical craving. And a lot of spiritual disciplines say that you can never become spiritual until you have that thirst. They use the same word. They use thirst or craving or hunger.
Well,
They'll
why
use
is that? You make decisions all throughout your day's interactions, the way you treat people, the way that you can forgive something. I believe that those are spiritual acts, that those are making you grow.
Of course.
You know, just in, let's say in your business life. So, I mean, so why would you have to do that when you're practicing it all day?
Oh, yeah, no. Actually, what you're talking about is really important. We're going to come to this in a minute. Yes, absolutely. So let me talk about the 6, and then you'll understand. Because you're absolutely right. There's some physical things, you set aside time and you do it. You'd have to agree, like eating.
Correct.
Other things you do constantly, regularly throughout your day. You don't set it. I gotta go in the room and breathe now for a little while. You don't have a breathing session. Breathing is all the time, whereas eating is periodically. This is true also in life. You cannot become spiritual by doing certain spiritual practices like meditation and prayer alone without doing it in the real world. This is a very important principle. Actually, what you're saying is fundamental. There are some spiritual disciplines that believe one can become spiritual through meditation. How many people have met people that think through meditation they become spiritual?
They go to India.
They go to India.
People
You can't become spiritual through meditation alone. Let me make that very clear. Some people say you can become spiritual by prayer. How many think you can become spiritual by prayer? You can't become spiritual without prayer, and you cannot become spiritual by prayer alone. Let me give it another analogy, since you're bringing up this analogy. Let's say you eat every single day, let's say you drink every single day. Let's say you sleep every single day. Let's say you exercise every day, but you forget to breathe. What's going to happen? The fact that you did those 5, what happens? You still die, right? Let's say you do any one of the 5, but miss out on the 6th one. Just think about it. It's the same with spiritual life. There are a number of things which you must do. And one of the things which you're talking about is in your interaction with people, showing compassion, showing love, showing mercy, seeing the good in people. All of these things, they are like breathing. You must do them as well. So I'm going to go ahead and give you the big 6. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to learn how to do each of those big 6. The first is prayer. Prayer is one of the things that you must do every single day. So we'll talk about prayer in a minute. The next is reading the scriptures of God, sacred scriptures. Now, I don't believe that there's any one religion, so you can all follow the sacred scriptures of yourself. So if you are from a Hindu background, the Hindu sacred scriptures. If you're Christian background, the Christian sacred scriptures. If you're a Buddhist background, some of us are Baha'is here, so you can follow this with any scriptures. But the point is that the scriptures of God that have been given through the messengers of God, through Jesus or Moses or Abraham or Buddha or Krishna, they've always been compared to food. Every single messenger of God has always compared his revelation, whether to food, to manna from heaven or bread. You know this is in all the... Now why do you think they compare it to food? Is it food? Is it physical food?
Because it nourishes the soul.
It nourishes the soul. It is the food of the soul. So you need to read a little bit of that every single day. Yes?
Is there a benefit in reading various scriptures of God as opposed to just one form?
In my opinion, yes. But in this program here, we're talking about the essentials of spirituality from an interfaith perspective. And so I don't want to tell anybody that they must read the scriptures of this religion or that religion, because you're going to get spiritual food. It would be like saying this, you know, is it good to eat Chinese food? Is it good to eat Indian food? Is it good to eat, you know, Mexican food?
Persian food.
Or Persian food. I say eat it all. Okay, but someone says, no, I grew up, you know, eating Persian food, and I'm only going to eat Persian food. And that's fine. That's fine. And so at this stage, I'm only talking about the principle, because you see, God has been so merciful to mankind. For 6,000 years, recorded history has shown that he has guided mankind through all of these great religions, and they've all brought great spiritual truth. Now, the first thing is prayer. The second is reading sacred scriptures. The third I call meditation. Now, there are 3 different things, like breathing and eating and so on. I call them 3 different modes of communication. Prayer is when you're communicating, you're speaking to God. Reading sacred scriptures is when God is speaking to you. It's a different dialect. And meditation is when you are speaking and conversing with yourself. Because believe it or not, you can converse with yourself. There are 3 different modes of spiritual communication, and they all bring about different insights. And the 3 of them together they kind of stir the pot of your spirit. But if you do those 3, we call those the 3 inner spiritual disciplines. You do those 3 alone, you're not going to grow spiritually. You must do the other 3, which are all outward. The 4th one is service. Service to other people. It is as essential to spiritual growth as the other 3. Service means that you're going to have to be concerned with other people. You're going to have to help the poor, visit the sick, try to encourage other people, try to be kind to other people. In other words, service to other people is a path to God. And it's as essential as the other 3. The next one, okay, let me get this right. The next one is to try and be an enlightener to other people. Okay, now some religions have said that you have to go out and proselytize or convert. I don't believe that's what is meant by this. Rather, you should be a beam of light and share your light with other people, to try and be a source of goodness to other people. That's the fifth one. The sixth one is the most important one. And that is that you must daily strive to bring your actions in accordance with the divine teachings. Now, the divine teachings are what you're going to read in your scriptures. It might say to love your fellow man, to turn the other cheek, to try every day to try and bring your life into action. And to do that, it means that you have to spend a certain amount of time each day thinking about yourself and evaluating yourself. I call it accounting. There's one statement that says, bring thyself to account each day, ere thou art summoned to a reckoning. For death unheralded shall come upon thee, and thou shalt be called to give account for thy deeds. So basically he's saying, when you die, death will come upon you, and you'll have to account. I did all this, and I didn't do all this. In other words, an accounting is going to happen. So it says, do that, keep the books every day. Farzin, right? Do you keep your books every day? Why do you keep them every day and not just every once a year, try to add it up?
Not sure where we are, how we are.
Okay, that's the same thing. To make, yes, go ahead.
Just to say, one of the ways they teach that is through the idea of Santa Claus knowing the naughty and nice list.
Oh, yeah.
Louder? What was that?
Like Santa Claus, the naughty and nice list, and then the idea of Saint Peter at the gates. They keep account of the actions that you've done in your life, or in your previous life, and that merits what you do in the next life.
Yeah.
Merits what gifts you get.
So this is the sixth thing, but I think it's the first one. And I think that's the one that we could start this week. All you need to do is get up in the morning and say, well, what did I do yesterday? And what am I going to do today? And think, well, did I get a little mad? Did I yell at that person? Did I lose my temper? Whatever is something bad, say, well, I'm going to try really hard when I see the person today to not do that. Did I lie? Maybe I'm not going to be so dishonest today. In other words, just think about yourself and say, how can I do that a little bit more today? Just like Mark Twain says, you can write a novel or you can grow a tree. This simple act, I say give it even a minute a day. You're going to be okay. Then I want to talk about prayer. And I'm going to finish tonight on prayer. And then next week I'm going to tell you how to pray, how to read. I'm going to tell you all six. We're going to talk about how to do each one of these. But I want you to come to me next week and tell me, I took the violin out every day and I evaluated myself.
But
Okay.
Are you saying that you can do all the 6 things in 5 minutes every single day? for the rest of your
I
life?
think that you can do it easily. The 3, the prayer, the evaluation, and the reading the writings, in as little as you want. In fact, there's one statement, it comes from our scriptures. He said to read one verse or even one word with joy and radiance is preferable to the perusal of many books. It's not how much you do, it's the spirit or the attitude with which you do it. Now, some of us, we sit down and we have a big meal and we eat for an hour, and sometimes you're on your way out and you'll grab
Taco Bell.
Taco Bell, just for example. Yes. Okay, so you'll grab a Taco Bell. So, the point is that you will always do it, even if you only have 5 minutes. This is what I want to get clear. If I tell you you got to spend an hour a day, then many days you will do 0 minutes. But if I tell you, do at least 5 minutes a day, like my violin teacher, then you're going to do an hour.
So the point of it is to get in the habit to do one of the 6 every single day.
No, the point is to learn to do all 6 every day. But it's the dailiness that matters. Just in the same way that you first learn to flip the page and you're not getting anything. That's the first step. So I need, before we can become really spiritual, I would love it if you guys spent 3 or 4 hours a day on meditation. But the way to learn to do 3 or 4 hours of meditation is to learn to do 1 minute a day first. It's learn the dailiness first, and then we can increase the time. And then you're able, there might be a day when you're really busy, and you don't have the time. There might be another day you have 2 or 3 hours. So I'm only going to teach you, how much time do I have, Farzin?
About 30 seconds.
30 seconds.
No,
I'm
5
going to teach you just how to pray.
He asked me a
Gotta get
question.
your
You
stop-
gotta answer it
stopwatch.
honestly.
I'm just going to teach you how to pray today.
Yes, you
Now-
have 7 minutes,
Okay, let's learn.
But he started late.
It's okay. I'll
including the late.
Oh, okay.
Listen, I want you all to teach how to pray. Now, I'm going to say right now, I want you all to say something right now, and say it, I want you all to say, oh God. Go ahead, say, oh God.
Oh God.
Okay, now I want you to say it to God. Go ahead.
Say what?
Say it again, and say it to God.
Oh God.
Okay, now I want somebody to tell me, raise your hand, what were you thinking when you said, oh God? Go ahead, what were you thinking?
I'm saying my voice is pretty deep.
I'm sorry?
No, I was saying, I wasn't thinking of anything.
Okay, so, okay.
I was looking up.
You were looking up?
Thinking up, yeah.
And
when
what-
I said, oh God.
Okay. What were you thinking?
Imagine this beam of light starting from my head to some light source.
You feel a beam of light. Okay, what do you feel when you say, oh God?
We just that moment of peace. Like I'm actually doing something.
Okay,
Myself.
what have you got?
Oh my God, all my problems.
Okay. All right. The first step in prayer, the absolute first step in prayer is to see yourself in the presence of God. Until you can see yourself in God's presence, you cannot pray. Now, when you're in somebody's presence, it completely alters your character and behavior. If right now, in the room, say the President of the United States was here, or say someone very important, even the mayor of Nashville, would you act different? Would you check your email or your watch or something? Is that right? You would be different if someone were very present with you. Is that right? Even if how many of you have a boss at work? Okay, well, if your boss comes into work and comes into your office and starts to talk to you, do you look around or check or take the phone? or do you give your boss your attention?
Full attention.
You give your boss your full attention. You agree? So it's quite clear that when someone is in your presence of a higher nature, it does affect your whole being. You cannot pray until you see yourself in the presence of God. And once you learn to see yourself in the presence of God, you can pray much better. So now, I don't care how you see God, but I want you now to say, oh God, and imagine a personal creator. It doesn't have to look like a human being. That's not what I mean by personal God. What religions mean, a personal God, is a God that's conscious, a God that has a brain, it's there. I want you to say, oh God, to that God now. Go ahead.
Oh God.
Now, how many of you felt you were in His presence now? That's the most important thing. Now, if you need, you can see God through Jesus. You can see God through a messenger of God, or you can see Him directly. You can see Him up in the sky. I have a particular image of God, which I can tell you later, which helped me until I learned to do it, but I won't tell you tonight. Now, there are three ways in which you can imagine God. One is the universal God. This is the big God that's just way out there. How many of you have a big God that's way out there? It's just like He's God of everything, right? How many of you have that God? Let's say to that, oh God, oh God. Now there's another kind of God. There's your own personal God that's God with you. Do you know there's God with you? I want you now to say, oh God, my God. And when it's oh God out there, I want it to be the universal God. And when it's my God, I want you to bring the God close to you imaginarily in some way. Let's try this. Oh God, my God. Now, the my God, I want Him to do something to you that brings Him close to you in your own imagination. I'm going to ask you all what He did. Okay, let's do it again. Oh God, my God. What did your my God do?
It's near to me.
He's near to you. Who can tell me what their my God did? I'm sorry? Hugging. In many of my classes, people have a hugging God. What did your God do?
Became a part of me.
He came inside you. That's a fantastic one. There's one statement that says, thou art my lamp and my light is in thee. So your my God, actually, could you feel it in you? What did your my God do?
Stood behind me.
Stood behind you. I love that. Do you have your hand on your back or something? I like that. Who had another my God?
Looked at me.
He looked at you?
Yeah.
Oh, but was he close to you?
Yeah.
Okay. In my meditation class, somebody said they imagined holding two hands and the lover was holding the two hands and he was like that. One said that he imagined God had a big hand and he was holding him. Kind of like the movie King Kong. But, that's what he said. He said, I feel this big hand. And I said, you really like it? And then somebody else said, oh, I can't imagine God being King Kong. Does it really matter? Does it really matter? It's just that there's one God out there and there's one God here. Now, I like to say this, that when you pray, you can either pray to the universal God or to the personal God. And they're both good. You need them both. Also, when you pray, you can either pray in general, like just, oh God, give me this, give me that, give me this, or just God, help me. Or you can pray for specific things. Would you agree? You can pray for... How many of you pray for specific things?
In college, for C's and B's.
You pray, okay. Okay, you pray for specific things. Now, I'm going to teach you a simple prayer that you can say. It's very simple. It doesn't refer to any particular deity. It just talks to God. Say this, oh God, my God. And I want you to go universal to personal. Try it again. Oh God, guide, my God. No, actually, I'm going to take the my God out. Just say, oh God, and then bring him down to you. Because I'm not going to put the my. Just say, oh God.
Oh God.
Now, I want you to think what you're going to do tomorrow. Have you got that? Who knows what they're going to do tomorrow?
Get up and go to work.
Okay, but is it a meeting you're going to have? And I want you to say, oh God, guide me. But I want you to see you in that situation, and I want you to see God guiding you. Okay, it doesn't have to be tomorrow. It can be any time. You can make a phone call. Anything you're going to do in the near future, I want you to say, oh God, guide me. And when you say, oh God, guide me, I want you to see God guiding you in that particular situation. Everyone do it. Oh God, guide me. Okay, now, how did God guide you? Can you tell me what he did to you? Pardon me.
Led the way, and I was going behind him.
Okay, so he led the way. Who else had another way that God guided you?
With him being a part of me, it's like I've seen a fast-forwarded version of my day, me doing the
And
things that
how is he guiding you?
It's almost like he's taking control of me and doing those things.
Okay, kind of like video.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, how is God guiding one of you?
Me, well, actually, I fast forward a little bit some of the goals that I have, and I can see them come to fruition and completion. Like for me, I'm starting my doctoral degree this fall, so I
Okay.
saw myself in graduation.
Good. Did you see? But how was God guiding you?
Just making the way, making the opportunity,
Okay.
thinking about the ways for me to accomplish that.
Who else did one?
It's like my grandfather that hold my hand. I was little, and he's a.
So you had you're holding a hand.
Yeah.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
I like that one too. Who else had any other God guiding you? Sometimes, how many of you ever have to speak? Like you have to talk to somebody on the phone or something. Can you imagine God guiding your speech? Okay? Whatever you're going to do, I want you to imagine God guiding you. Now, I want you to say, protect me. Say that. But I want you to say, protect me in the context of that meeting or that situation you're going to have tomorrow. You see? Okay, so let's try it again. Imagine the thing that you're going to do tomorrow or next day or next year. And we're going to say, oh God, guide me, protect me. 3 things. And we're going to have a different picture. Oh God, guide me, protect me. Now, this time he protected you in that very situation that you were going to be in tomorrow or next day. Who can tell me how he protected you?
I visualized the stage that I'm going to be standing on.
You're going to be on a stage,
right,
which is going to happen
tomorrow.
And in which case, how did he protect you on the stage?
Well, it just gave me some comfort.
Oh, just gave you comfort. Okay, who else had a different form of protection? Yes?
I make a point back to what you said, asking about guidance. I know whenever I speak, I do a lot of public speaking on radio and television, and I was praying before that, say, Lord, please speak through me. So it's not necessarily
Right.
my hand healing something, but use me as a vessel to reach other people.
Yes, so the guidance came, you could feel it coming through you. Yes, that's a very... who else had any form of protection?
Protecting from what?
I want you to, I don't want to tell you.
Okay.
But I think that there's many things that you need to be protected from. You need to be protected from other people and from situations, but you also need to be protected from your lower self, your own negative, like jealousy or hatred and so on. So So there's many things that you need to be protected from, and each day it could be different. Protect me from my anger, because I hate this person that I'm going to be meeting.
Calling today.
Okay. Protect me from them because they are going to do this. Protect me from my ignorance. Protect, in other words, any form of